Good evening, and welcome to the Tewksbury Board of Selectmen meeting of January 7th. Can we all please rise and do the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for that. The 6 o'clock start, well, 6:10 start now, is a working session for water infrastructure. So we have a presentation. Is it Mr. Hardeman doing the presentation, or is it John?
So I guess I'll start. This is sort of the new one in this ball game, and tell you what I know. And
John, can you move the mic closer?
oh yeah,
Just so our recording secretary will be able to record.
okay. That okay?
That's fine. Jan, you can hear?
I can hear just fine. Yep, perfectly.
Okay, so I've been kind of trying to figure out what's going on with the debt for the town, and I'll just show you some of the spreadsheets that I put together. This is kind of the guts, so it's not pretty, but I was looking at the debt. So if you look at this sheet up here, and you look on the far left, that is sort of the debt trend moving forward, with no new debt except for the authorized and unissued debt from 3 projects, and the 3 projects are, we're going out next month, I think. One is 1.5 million for meters. Another is the school, probably in the range of about 5 million for the school, which is debt excluded. And then there's another, I think that those two are the things that we haven't issued yet that weren't on the schedule. So I added them to the schedule so that you could see, or at least I added them to this graph so you could get an idea of the trend. So they're in this number here. They're in this line item. So the blue line is exempt debt. So is the schools and anything else that was exempted. And I think you do have a couple of other things, not just the schools. Did you exempt the fire station? Was that a debt exclusion?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yes.
So that's in there. So you can see, like in 2040, the exempt debt drops down to 0, and that's when you stop paying exempt debt. But then the rest of the schedule, you can see it drops off, because I don't have any schools in here, like if the schools would build a middle school or something like that, or in addition to the high school or whatever. I haven't put anything like that in there because it's too far out, too far down the road. Then the second graph is accounting for the $5.4 million a year that we would be adding to debt service if we, based on the vote that the board took previously for the water distribution system. So that's the red line. So you can see there's a change, right? The exempt debt is about the same because we haven't changed anything with that. But once you start adding that 5.4 million a year each year, the debt goes up. And what I also added, so that accounts for debt that's falling off too. So that's the net line of the debt. And so what you're seeing happening is over time, you start in FY25 at about $10 million in non-exempt debt, and then by FY35 it gets up to $15 million. So the debt service goes up about $5 million in 10 years, based on that policy. And then what I did was I said, okay, if the value, after talking to Kevin, the value of all the work that needs to be done is about $170 million to replace all that pipe. And so if you spread that out over 12 years, it would be $14.75 million a year. And that red line represents that. And what that would do to debt service, so the debt service goes from 10 million to 36 or 37 million in 2035. So it jumps substantially. Now, this is just conversational. I don't want to scare the bejesus out of people. So just anyone who's watching this at home, these are all just discussions, not anything that's actually going to happen. This is just an opportunity to give information to the board so you can make decisions. Now, just to give you a relative, sort of an understanding of what that impact might be. If you were solely to just dump that on the rates, you'd have to do a 35% increase in 1 year and then you could incrementally go down from there. But it would be a 35% increase. Now, I took what Richard did, and thankfully, it's what he put before the board is right there, 1.115 for the rates, and it shows you what the projected retained earnings would be after spending $625,000. And so that's right on track for this year. That's what Richard did. So then if you throw in that debt, which is roughly, you'd be increasing the debt by $2 million a year. So if you go up, if you look at the box I have highlighted, the 6.2 million. The year before that was 3.1 million. So these are all just projections, but if the debt went up to 6.2 million, then you would have to increase the rates in order to pay for that by about 35% just to cover that for that year. And that still includes roughly just over $500,000 in other capital that's being spent by the DPW on capital items. So all that being said, what other things could impact the debt? So the hospital is going to be roughly, I'd say, about $700,000 in revenue based on, and I think I used the top tier, not the out-of-town rate, but I think the out-of-town rate might be the factor that would be used. But they'd be pinning it every day. There'd be over 90,000 million gallons per day, or 90,000 gallons per day, and so they'd be in the top tier. So if you do the calculation, there'd be roughly $700,000 annually in revenue. So if you do that, you apply that to debt, that's really, that's roughly $7 million in debt. $700,000 is debt service for about $7 million, maybe a little less. You wouldn't want to do that all in 1 year because what you're proposing to do here is increase the debt every year, not flatline, go up 20 million and stay there. You're going up 5, 5, 5, or 10, 10, 10, 10. So you would take that money and spread it out over, say, 5 years. That money wouldn't become available till 2027 because by the time they get up and running, and it'll be a couple of years. So that's okay for planning purposes. So you could knock that number down a little bit. So you could probably knock $1 million off for 5 years. For at least for a little while. And the other issue to keep in mind is that there's going to be a need for project managers as these projects come on, because you need staff to manage those projects. So that'll be an expense, and you can't pay for that through bonds. You have to pay that through the budget itself. And just looking at that, you're probably talking about $100,000 with all the legacy costs and everything else for an individual of that caliber to do that kind of work. I don't know, that won't be permanent because they'll be there for the projects, but who knows what will happen over time. But that's something that the town would have to consider as well. Then the other issue that I was talking to Kevin about was that the work was done, CDM did this a while ago, about 8 years ago. And so all this stuff is based on sort of, some data that's a little dated, but, for planning purposes, it's good to help you with these discussions, but down the road, I think you'd want to solidify what the capital plan was, and explore some of these things a little deeper. I know that we had this discussion about the cleaning and relining. I think there's some value there to do that in the right places to prevent having to do other road work that invariably happens when you start opening up the streets. And it might expedite some stuff too, because you're not doing that, those other projects. So that's something to consider, but you'd have to get into that doing some type of a study, and that would probably take, 8 to 9 months or whatever to do something like that. But all that being said, I think the fact that you're on track to bond $5.4 million a year right now is, at least you're moving, right? And then the question is, how much more aggressive do you want to get? And what do you think the constituency of the town, what do you think they want? What do you think they want? How much is that worth? I know all of the SRF program, doesn't look like you guys have used it all that much. Would you use it, Kevin, for these loans?
So we did apply for the SRF program, and we got on the list. I think we were probably third or fourth from the bottom of the list, so we were pretty far down. But it was granted to us because of lead service lines,
Okay.
not because of AC. I've looked into it. I haven't found any SRF funding that we'd be eligible for just to replace aging water lines. It just doesn't rank high enough in their priorities right now. It's their focus is PFAS and lead service line.
Right. Because that has an impact too, because the loans, which didn't matter a few years ago because the market was so hot, 2% wasn't a big deal, but 2% a big deal today. So if you could get an SRF loan, that has value, So, and that could change. Who knows what's going to happen, with the change of administrations and stuff, but some of that money is still there. How that's going to be spent and awarded is something I think we should pursue, and we should probably get somebody on board to help us with that, because, you're busy, and you can't, there are people that you can bring on that have relationships with these people, and they can help us apply for those SRFs and figure out a way to make it work. So that's something to keep in mind too. And, but was my first go at it, digging into it a little bit, and I think it's up to the board, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Kevin, please chime in, and from the capital plan perspective, you have something to add. By all means, do. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, John. So from a capital plan perspective, I made this comment to John earlier today is, when we're replacing aging pipe, there's no wrong answer of what pipe to choose. There's just answers that are better than others, right? If we can get a foot of this pipe, half a mile of this pipe out of the system, it's a benefit to us overall. But as we've always done, and we look at what other work needs to be done within that roadway, what's the timing of that work, what's the condition of the surface, does it need to be paved curb to curb afterwards? Those are always things that we look at. I try not to project out, more than 4 to 5 years, because the pavement condition can go downhill, as most of you know. From the time that you create that plan to the time that you get to the 5th year of the plan, your priorities may shift. We experience breaks in centralized areas and those areas move, and those change our priorities. So while I could list off, and we have maps of where all the AC is, where all the cast iron is, we know all the pipe that needs to be replaced, we take it on a 5-year chunk of priorities and fold that into what other work needs to be done within those roadways. And, so we're not wasting effort, and so we maximize the funding and get the most out of it we can.
All right, thank you. Mr. Curran, when you had your chart up there for the debt, where was the sewer debt coming off, or when is the sewer debt coming off?
See if I can find that, hold on.
And I don't believe the sewer debt was an override or an exempt debt. It was, we financed it, didn't we?
Right, it was rate driven.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is all the sewer debt here. Again, excuse the back of the house appearance of these spreadsheets, but this is all the sewer debt, and if you look, sort of the gospel numbers here are the ones that are really driving everything. Is
So if I could jump in, Mr.
Yeah.
Curran. So with, in the budget presentation from last year, FY24 had a debt as a percentage of the budget for sewer is 50%. By the time we get to FY30, it's to 15%. FY31, it's down to 4%. So that's kind of, over the next 5 years, it goes from 50% down to about 4%.
so yeah, so if you look at this number here, this is 8.7 million, that's non-exempt debt, so that includes sewer. Then, like you said, sewer debt,
But I thought the sewer debt was all non-exempt, it wasn't an override, it's a loan.
Correct.
Okay, and what percentage of that was shifted to the taxpayer?
50% of the sewer budget was shifted to the general fund.
but that was shifted back, my understanding is it's all fully funded. In fact, the reason I know that is I watched the last meeting, and Richard had said that they had shifted, they had eventually, and if you look at the spreadsheet, you can see that there is no sewer debt on the tax levy right now. And if you look here, this is the sewer debt for the enterprise fund. And it does drop off dramatically. It goes from 3.2 million in 27 to 2.4 million to 1.5 million in 29, and then 873,000 in FY30. So it does drop off sharply, and if you look at those charts that I showed you, whoops. And this is probably the best one to look at. The drops, the precipitous drops coming down here are, is the sewer debt, right in that little area there. So then if you start adding the water debt, it's taking into account that sewer debt's going away, and then it pops up in here. So if that sewer debt had not gone away, then that red line would be even higher.
That's basically my question.
Yeah.
I wanted to know when the
If-
sewer debt was coming off. I know this is really one where it's a tall order. I understand that. But the taxpayers need some type of relief. I know we need it. The taxpayers know we need it. When you get the brand-new fire truck and everybody sees it's nice and shiny and stuff like that, everything's great. Nobody looks at the infrastructure under the ground until something happens. And when something happens, then all hell breaks loose. So I'm going to turn it over.
I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, on that note, I feel like something has been happening frequently, hence the
Right.
discussion, right? So that's where I don't think I could agree more. We have purchases we need to make. We need to stay up with all of our equipment, but the infrastructure is in dire need of some love. So
Right.
I would second that comment.
Ms. Wellman, you have any comments?
Mr. Hardeman, you said that the sewer debt was dropping off. Can you remind me of those percentages, please?
So for FY '25, the debt as a percentage of the budget is 50%.
Of the water enterprise budget,
Sewer enterprise.
Right.
sewer enterprise
Right.
budget.
Sewer is what's dropping off from the sewer project. That has the most effect.
Okay,
So it goes 50%, then 47% in FY '26, 45% in FY '27, 36% in FY '28, 25% in FY '29, 15% in FY '30, 4% in FY '31.
yeah. I don't know that we have a standard financial practice that we keep a certain amount of debt or capital outlay in our water and sewer enterprise budgets. Are we aware of a policy that we do keep something like 10% constantly in capital outlay?
No, I can tell you what we have for debt service. It's right now, well, let me go, hold on, I get that in another sheet.
Well, because there's the capital that we're paying out of retained earnings, and then there's capital that we're going to borrow for as well, capital investment that we borrow for. And as a percentage of the overall enterprise budget.
Okay.
So I could tell you that, so for water, we had in 2024, the debt was 2.5 million, went up to 3.1 million in '25, and it's, projected to go up to 5.4 million eventually. But
Right.
I can tell you what that is a percentage of the budget, the 3.1,
And yeah, it's like,
36%. So it's a very healthy percent of the budget already.
yeah,
And that's not unusual. I remember in Billerica, the debt was, I think, higher than in the sewer budget, the debt was actually higher than the operating budget. So
okay.
when you have all this capital that needs to be done, it's almost like a different budget.
It is, it's almost exactly like yeah, I concur with that. Okay, I don't have any further comments right now. Look forward to more discussion on rate growth and what that's going to cost, and if we want to do all of the borrowing within the enterprise fund, or if we want to put any of it on the general fund. I wouldn't support putting it on a general fund, but it's a conversation worth having because it's such a significant repair.
Mr. Ryder?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll agree with Ms. Wellman. I personally don't agree with putting it on the general fund. The intent of an enterprise account was created specifically to be self-funded.
Yep.
And look what happened when the shift went on the sewer debt, on the tax rate. Taxes went through. It took us, 5 years to 7 years to get back, to shift it back to the enterprise account to cover its self-sustaining costs. I think, understanding, we are not unlike any other town. This isn't new. This isn't, this happens in a majority of cities and towns across the state. However, I think we need to look at, some interesting information to have would be how that debt falling off of the sewer impacts on the rate. So we have to look at what that rate, and as you stated, 47% of your operating budget of sewer is debt. What's that in rate? If you can calculate out to put that into what the rate cost is for that 47% of that debt. And look at how, again, I agree with the chair on, we need to give some relief to the taxpayer, because that was the message, that this sewer debt's going to fall off. And at some point, the rates are gonna level out, or potentially, ideally, we'd like to see them go down. What you could do here is, you know, an idea is, and you'd have to look at how the calculation would work, is taking your savings on the sewer side, because as everyone knows, that you pay your water bill, you pay your sewer bill, it's an impact on both. If we could save the ratepayer on the sewer side and increase on the water side, but keep the end bill the same,
And that's zero.
that is the end goal. So as you talk, you know, 26 to 27, it's 2% and drops 9, and then drops 9, and it drops 10, and then ultimately 9%. So how does that forecast out in a rate of, in dollars, to be able to put that into water infrastructure? So if we're saving, round numbers, if it's, you're saving $100 on the sewer bill, what is that out of your rate? And be able to put that $100 into water infrastructure, but maintaining the same bill for the resident. I think that, I would feel comfortable with that. You know, residents would understand what we're trying to solve a problem, but we're trying to keep their, you know, their income of what's going out, you know, at a minimum.
Balance.
It's a balancing effect. And, you know, we know we're going to see that 1-2% increase, whether it be on chemicals or other items, operational costs, union contracts, all the soft costs, you know, back of the house costs for the enterprise accounts. But to have those numbers, to see what that in dollars gives us the ability to do infrastructure. And as I said in our last working session, I think, you know, we as Mr. Curran stated, we need some project managers. I think money well spent is to bring some in-house designers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Harden, you know, the cost of, you know, bringing on a consultant to design, you know, 2 water main projects is $300,000, $400,000, $500,000.
Yeah.
You know, if we have to pay, you know, a design engineer, you know, 100, 150, we have them on the payroll. What we can get out of them is, you know, much more, and you can use that individual also as a project manager. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But if we can get ahead, wintertime, we start to design those smaller projects. Summertime, springtime, project goes out to bid. Late winter, early spring, construction start, we can use that body out in the field. We may need to supplement that, we understand that. But we also, it's managing the amount of work that you can handle, you know. And also, we have to be able to manage the amount of work that residents can handle. I mean, there is a significant impact on water infrastructure. And as you know, once you get into water infrastructure, we're going to be impacting sewer, drain. Then you get into the roadway. We're also going to be impacting gas. Gas company is going to want to come in and do their work. So we have to look at, we have a very small window of construction season, so managing that as well. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I think it can be done. $170 million is a big ask. You know, Mr. Curran showed $14 million a year. That's a huge ask. But if we can get to 6.5, 7, 7.5 million by looking at the numbers here of debt falling off on the sewer side, I think that's something that we could manage, you know, or you could manage with your staff and maybe some outside help. So I think Having those numbers would help us to kind of forecast where we're going to be in FY '27, FY '28. So,
Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
I actually agree. That's where I was going with the sewer debt. So as one comes down and until it levels off, I wouldn't know if I would use all of the sewer debt because people have been paying the sewer debt for 20 years and we've been beating them up, and I'm one that gets beat up. I wouldn't like to see all of it go there, but I would like to see a percentage of it go there, and some percentage go back to the ratepayer.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think having those numbers, as I said, can help us to say, if it's, $100,000, how are we going to spend that $100,000 that we're not paying out in debt?
So I could be mistaken, but I believe when we went from 1 to 3 miles, I think it was going to, over some period of time, equate to about 8% increase. As Mr. Curran said, if we went to the 14 and change, it'd be like a 30-something% increase. Again, it's a very large pill. That's not feasible.
Correct.
However, if we start looking at more than a 12 or 15-year plan, now we have more stuff aging out, and we're never going to get ahead of it. My argument from the beginning was I don't want my kids dealing with this same brown water main break consistent issues. We have an issue in front of us. Finding something that we can start to do, I think, is the bare minimum. It's going to cost money. We spend lots of money on lots of things. I am usually exceedingly conservative with where we spend money, but I think this is a problem that we can't minimalize what we're spending on it. Again, we all pay the same water bills and same taxes, and again, we do have some of our delegation that showed up for us. So again, like we talked about last time, looking at other funding sources, but at the end of the day, this needs to be addressed sooner rather than later, especially with costs going up. And I believe a small delta with the previous projections and what Mr. Curran put up tonight may not have included the year-over-year cost increase. So whatever 2.5%, 3%, 4%, 5% is on building materials, et cetera. So those costs are also going to go up. And when we're talking about a 15 or 20-year window, that starts to compile pretty quickly, so.
All right. Mr. Robinson, would you like to come up and sit up here, please? I invited Representative Robinson here to see if he can be of any assistance on the way we go looking for money. If you can introduce yourself for the record, I'm sure everybody knows who you are, but just do it for the...
Yeah, absolutely. For the record, Representative Robertson, and the pleasure of representing the majority of Tewksbury geographically, and as well as growing up here. So happy to lend a hand.
The reason I asked, and I asked the rest of the delegation, I assumed you transferred the message. We're not in trouble. We're not a rich town. We're not a poor town.
Right.
We're a town that is just trying to survive. And with the cost of doing this, is there any way you could put anything in a legislative bill that will get us some money?
Sure. With particular, I imagine, drinking wastewater, MS4 compliance and the like?
It's basically infrastructure.
Sure.
We have a brand-new plant up there that runs efficiently, and we have old garden hose trying to deliver the water to somebody's home. You got to remember that if we can't supply water to people's homes, nobody's going to live here.
Correct.
Nobody lives here, you don't need a fire. You can't put out a fire because the garden hose breaks. Yeah?
Right.
So that's basically what we're trying to do, is replace what we currently have, and we have to do it methodically because we've already beat the ratepayer up.
Sure.
And I believe the ratepayers are tired.
Right.
I mean,
It's-
granted, they can't see it, but when something happens, they're the first people that are going to complain.
Right. I mean, you're in a financially difficult place. A single-family R40 is the most subsidized type of property when it comes to zoning. So Tewksbury, as that outer periphery of growth, it's a bit of a dual struggle here. We have to handle densification, but as the board's talked about before, preserving what people wanted to move out for. So I appreciate the balance beam that you and the board are walking, as well as those who are handling the town's fiscal finances. So I had prepared a bunch of stuff in terms of sidewalk, especially in depth, as well as road construction. We can go down that path, as well as a little bit about some of the upcoming money for the North Street and housing and the like. When it comes to stormwater, it's been a very frustrating last 3 cycles for me since I took office, and I know it was previously for Representative Maselli. When the town, even back under previous town manager, Mr. Montori, who, by the way, Mr. Manager, it's good to see you here tonight for the first time in front of you. We approached the delegation, and basically, well, the delegation approached our colleagues and asked, and I have been the chief filer every year, for a piece of legislation that would greatly up the sewer rate relief fund from the Commonwealth going back to the towns. It's an absolute disgrace right now. It's a few paltry $1 million. And if you look, even in our neck of the woods, for example, Haverhill was looking at upgrading some of their water discharge plant into the Merrimack. Would have taken up the majority of that state line item present for municipalities, all 351 of you. And what Haverhill was rewarded did not come close to covering what the entire cost would have been. And even if they got 100% of what the state would have given in terms of reimbursement back to Haverhill for it, still wouldn't have covered one town's upgrade. Never mind an expansion, never mind a repair, never mind going anything through ledge or resurfacing and the like. So it's an uphill battle, and it's one that's particularly frustrating because, like you said, water is like the most basic service next to fire and policing. What I've seen and what I'm hoping is with the push around with housing in general from the governor, is some of these ancillary support services and the like are going to get some more attention. So currently in the midst right now, we're in the middle of refiling all of our bills from the previous session. That goes against, up until January 14th. After that, I've asked for a meeting with administration and finance from within the executive branch in order to sit down and kind of playing into what I've touched also prepared tonight for any of your questions might be, there are 3 topics that I informed ANF that I wanted to meet about that are going to have to be approached. Separate but related to it, the state's doing well, there's rumors of a major infrastructure bill in development. So I think that's an opportunity for a lot of the stuff that last time I was here when we talked about the hospital. The other 2 topics have been the transportation, particularly around complete streets and sidewalks. You know, I've heard a lot of you on the board bring that up as well as from the residents, which I can also easily bring into with, so it mostly revolves around Chapter 90 and the like, what goes under the roads. And then the other portion, which I've let ANF know, is releasing the money that we had in the previous bond, which the state had placed earmarks for these bonds when they're issued to help develop North Street, however you in the town decides to do so, and any sort of supplemental development that was off of that. So do you want me to, as we're on the topic of going more into water?
I think we want to stick to the water.
Sure.
That's what we're here for, is the water. And Mr. Mackey, do you have any questions for?
No, the only piece of clarification, I know you kind of jumped into this a little bit late, so we're basically been having a series of water infrastructure discussions and how we can fund it. Long story short, about half of our 160 miles of water conduit in town is past useful life. We have lots of water breaks, we have a plethora of issues, and we've been discussing how we can fund this.
Right.
The challenge comes where, as we were just discussing, the sewer debt that we've been paying for the last 20 some odd years is getting ready to roll off, and people have been waiting for that relief in their high bills, and now we have this very large project we need to undertake that would more than probably double what that relief was going to be. So we're looking for how the state can help us, how particularly you and our delegation can help us. Again, we've applied for SRF funding. As Mr. Hardman has said, it's primarily gone to lead. So we're just looking for other options, other avenues, other places we can go to help mitigate the cost of this rather large project that we need to undertake.
Understood.
And we're looking at, personally, I would like to see 10 years, but we're discussing 12, 15-year plans. And if some of the numbers have been thrown around tonight would probably be closer to 25, 30 years. So we're hoping to get it done faster than that, and obviously that takes
Of course.
funding, so.
Well, one of the atypical things, and I don't want to broach this as, I'm still trying to gauge the possibility out, and it's actually something that Ms. Wellman back when I was first elected brought up and adjacent. Over the last few months, we as a state delegation, along with our New Hampshire colleagues across the line, have been meeting with our federal counterparts and trying to get the Army Corps engineer down. We touched upon, I believe, in the last meeting I was here as well. Again, I'm going to give the disclaimer. I don't want the residents worried that there's anything wrong with the tap water, but there's been discharge and monitoring issues, particularly with sewage overflow around there and dated systems. So I'm happy to, while we're kind of broaching on the greater Merrimack water status when it comes to that, considering our tie-in with Lowell and the like. That's outbound. I know we're discussing inbound drinking water things as well, but if we can find some financial relief and take ability to offset of some of the savings there, we might have an opportune time. It's kind of hard with, I don't want to get into politics, but with the incoming administration's plans around what's going to be the infrastructure priorities and the like, has still yet to be seen for me to make a reliable recommendation to you on what we're seeing on the state level. But I do believe, like I said, we're trying to get New Hampshire and the northern towns along the Merrimack River to spend extra money now to offset and save down the line, as well as cut down on pollution, increase our health and the like. So I think that maybe we could have a possibility of sneaking some of our upgrades and projects and the like there. Particularly, I think that probably goes more towards drains, as Mr. Ryder had spoke before. It's something else impacted, or the sewage portion. But I think that we could, more than happy to ask our federal government if there's any sort of financial relief there we could fast track through in conjunction.
Thank you.
Mr. Kratman, any questions?
No, we've gone over this a number of times. I apologize for being late. But, I know that the feds came out with some guidelines about, improvements in we have to, announce what we have for infrastructure, but every community around is going to be doing the same thing. And each and every time we've gone to the delegation, we've asked for, and it doesn't seem to be a program in place that specifically does this. But it seems like if there's something that's being done in a community, that like there's a major transportation things, that's some time has been put into the project. So I don't know, we have a couple, like we're talking about doing in different sections of 38 over. I don't know how bad the lines are up there, but if that's something that can be included.
Sure.
When that is being done, that may take something off our plate, so that when we're trying to do the other Whipple and all the other town roads, if there's any part of the state that they can take care of and add that to part of the project. I know it's happened in the past where I'm trying to expedite a project and the state will end up picking up part of that.
Sure.
So if there's something that, while we're under design and talking about finishing up the rest of 38, I'd like to have that at least put in place by the delegation, and anything that you can do to try to find, I know, our congressman got us some money through the feds and things like that. I don't know if our delegation has a lot of conversation with federal partners, but if the state doesn't have any funds, is there a way that we can talk with the feds to see if there's any money available?
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman? Can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, no, I was muted. Thank you, Representative Robertson. I'm glad that you mentioned the combined sewer outflows as an effort. I think it's great to go to Administration and Finance, see if you can get A&F to fund anything. You can put anything on a list, but that doesn't mean the governor will fund it. Correct. So we've seen that happen plenty, and I don't think that we can ask for it. I think it's fantastic. I don't think we should pin our hopes on it. We should plan judiciously to fund it ourselves. In perpetuity, we have these systems, we have to have them, and we can't not fund them. Not funding them for 10 years by previous select board is why we have found ourselves in this mess. Anyway, we constantly have to invest in our infrastructure over time so that we don't find ourselves having to do this massive impact, which is going to be, really impactful to our residents. So, thank you.
Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Robertson, for coming. Again, I'll agree with Ms. Wellman. I've been doing this a long time. The state's not there when it comes to replacing water mains. It's what the latest health impact is, whether it's PFAS, it's, lead come out of nowhere, and, the regulations that are going to be impacted on this town in the next, 5, 7 years is going to be another impact, and it's an unfunded mandate. Interesting enough that you mentioned that, this governor's talking about the potential of funding, but it's through housing. And so this is backdooring that same handcuff, as I like to call it. Well, if you didn't comply with this, we're back in that same, chasing our tail, that everything is wrapped around housing. What about the housing we have? What
Sure.
about the residents that we have?
Right.
They've been paying taxes for a long time
Right.
and getting nothing back, especially Tewksbury. Tewksbury, if you look at what we get, pennies on the dollar, it's pennies. It's not even in the pennies. It's real pennies, what we get compared to the gateway cities, the Lawrence, the Lowell, Springfield. Tewksbury doesn't get
Sure.
what
Are you-
residents in town deserve, or whether it be for some housing. I think, we need you to fight for Tewksbury. I appreciate you coming tonight. I wish our other representatives would come and listen to us. Again, you're the only one that comes anytime we have an issue, and I appreciate that. But I think we need to get creative at the State House, change some of the initiatives, and start investing in the infrastructure.
Right.
Not on a treatment plant or treatment technologies, stuff that's already in the ground, and start to put back into infrastructure. That seems to have been lost across the state and from the federal level in the last 20, 30 years, as you're aware.
Yeah.
That has fallen off significantly with other priorities. And I get there's only so much money to go around.
Right.
But we need some help here, and I
what
think
you're
this is significant. So anything you can do, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. I'm going to reiterate what my colleague said, and like Mr. Ryder said, the cities get all the money, we get nothing, it's just pennies. I can see Lowell got $5 million to improve the Boys and Girls Club. They got $10 million to do something else, and we get nothing. We get no assistance. So as Ms. Wellman said, we can put something a bill in for the legislature. Just keep trying.
Yep.
There's 3 years, and just be annoying. Just be annoying, and eventually somebody's going to listen to you. I don't know how the game is played down in Boston, but if there's 3 years, I'm sure you can come up with some type of plan to say, we'll give Bill Ricker or this if you vote for this. And that's how the game is played down there. I'm sure it is. But I think you need to put something in there and put $1 million, put $2 million. All they can do is say no,
Right.
and just
Sorry,
keep
go ahead.
putting it in there until finally somebody turns around and says, well, let's give them the money so it goes away,
Sure, that's what I've been in principle doing with the filing every year with the state revolving wastewater fund. That's every year, put it in. And in fact, I got to track down and make sure it's the
Now,
exact
do they
one,
give you a reason why they didn't fund it?
No, it's typically when, it's particularly a niche fund in that aspect. A lot of the other infrastructure earmarks from other communities have been done either through EcoDev and such, which, like I mentioned, I brought the earmarks into the past, and Tewksbury in the past. We have had some stuff around the MS4 compliance. Mr. Montori and for you there on the board when COVID first broke out. Remember, we had a big fight with the federal government over with them repairing Shawsheen Street and the state requiring some additional things, which they failed to reimburse us on, while, as was mentioned, other cities got it. But to give a little context on the funding, I had no control over with what the feds required on gateway cities, all right? And I wasn't the one that pioneered to put the local system in or how it was funded back in the day. I'm only here as your representative now, helping, trying to clean up the mess there. So I'm sorry for whatever perceived slight the state and Fed had before when it came to funding. But when it came to COVID, it was beyond frustrating. Rich, myself, even Mr. Montori, Richard Montori, previous TM, we sent out combined letters and that to the federal and state delegation going, what the hell? We were ordered by FEMA to address this issue. The state required us to do these environmental protections, and now we can't get funding on either. and you, the local board, ate that cost, which was an absolute abandonment by us on the state level and the federal level. So the trend's there. It's frustrating. I'm just not that important enough back during COVID to tell the congressional and presidential delegations on how to distribute the money or how they came to that conclusion. But on the state level, yes, absolutely. And if we want to do something smaller with direct earmarks, I know whether it's a few tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, we can even nip projects in the bud that way and work with you on whatever the priority of the listing is.
All right, thank you, and thank you for coming, too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sidewalks, housing, anything else?
No, we've
No.
got to go into our regular appointed schedule, so
Yeah, my number. I'm always happy to
we're
come
going
down.
to end this session and go into our regular.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, before we close, I got to ask, again, first of all, thank you for putting this on the agenda again. I know we've had a few of these sessions. My question is, what's our next step? We've had lots of good discussions. We keep getting little bits of information, so what's our objective for our next working session? What would we like to see come out of it? So we can keep moving this
I would
forward?
like to see come out of it, the plan where as the debt comes off and this comes up, to see where we are in 5 years. 1 year, 2 year, 5 year.
You tracking that, Mr. Karn?
Yeah, I can, I was looking at the sewer debt after we were talking about it earlier. So there is, half of the sewer debt is on the levy. The water debt is not on the levy. And so it's 6 million something of sewer debt, and then 3.3 million of that is in the rates. So it is falling off rather dramatically, but what I can do is quantify that, give you some analysis about, it's kind of difficult because even though, you know, 35% increase would be required for water. It would be different for sewer because it's a different budget, different animal. So, but I'll see if I can quantify that in a way that you can, you know, transfer that to what it would mean for debt down the road over the next probably 5 to 7 years.
And if you can include the assumption that the hospital is going to hook up to.
Yes, yeah, yes.
So we have some type of revenue estimate
Yeah.
for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So what we can see to offset the debt, you know, okay, so this year we get, say, $500,000, that's going to pay for that debt for 5 years or 10 years, you know what I mean?
Right.
Similar to we've done with other sessions, could we set a date to get questions to Mr. Curran that board members may have? So during our next session, we can, instead of just getting answer to one question and coming in and having another one, we can have all of the questions we know about now on the table, and then we can have, again, continue these productive conversations moving forward.
Well, why don't we have the first meeting in March? That gives anybody plenty of time. We'll say to the next meeting, the 28th, to get you all the questions, you know, because if they get the answers, they can see you on the 28th to be prepared for the first session in March.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, we're going to move into our regular session right now. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we begin, I'd like to take a moment of silence for a gentleman that sat in this seat, or that seat, for 21 years. Charles Caldwell passed away this past week. He's been on a number of committees, but he was on the Board of Selectmen for 21 years. I'm having a tough time doing 2. He did 21, yeah? So if we can take a brief moment of silence to remember Charles. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to our regular scheduled items. First up is Speedway. Thank you, Mr. Hardeman, by the way, I forgot that. Speedway Motors, 2195 Main Street, new owner's Class 2 auto license. Ms. Wellman, are you still with us?
She's there.
I sure am.
Okay.
I am for a little bit longer.
Mr. Chair, do we stand here or?
No, you can sit there, just introduce yourself for the record, state your name and address.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Select Board, Attorney Brian Occasion from Murphy Occasion Law. Our office is 1 Courthouse Lane in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I'm here representing Speed Motors, Inc. for a new Class 2 license for an existing premises located at 2195 Main Street in Tewksbury. With me is Bruno Salas, who is the principal in Speed Motors, Inc.
Okay, board members, everybody read the application?
Yep.
Any questions?
I just got a question. So, can you just tell us a little bit about, your previous experience with this kind of business?
Sure, would you like me to address it, or Ms.?
Whoever, I don't really.
Oh, so I'll let him speak for himself in a second, but I've represented Mr. Salas in front of the City of Lowell License Commission, the Town of Chelmsford Select Board, and the Town of Tingsboro Select Board. He's been in the business for 12 years, has a knowledge of all the rules and regulations of both the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Town of Tewksbury now, and the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles. He understands that 2195 Main Street is the main thoroughfare in the town of Tewksbury. He understands a lot has to be well-kept and professional looking. And if you want to add anything, Bruno, go right ahead.
Yes, so I've been working in the car sales industry for over 12 years. I have a little bit of experience in the finance as well. I work at Source One Financial Corporation in Dedham. And I've been having licenses in this area, in the Middlesex area. I understand that all the business needs to work with the community. It needs to comply with the city hall in order to have a good environment, a helpful environment. So I did a little bit of betterment into the property that I'm going to start doing business with, because I believe on the main road, it needs to be good look. It needs to have a clean business. So I tried, that's a culture of my business, is try to work as best as I can with the community and complying with the town and the state.
I appreciate those comments, because I've sat on this board for a decade now. This is probably maybe the 7th time I've seen this business go up for sale in 10 years. Each and every time there's been a transfer, I've said the same thing. I feel like I've talked on deaf ears. I'm wishing everybody the best, but if the place looks run down, if the parking lot has weeds and cracked pavement and things like that, people aren't going to come in there. I'm trying to do you a favor. I'm not trying to make you spend money.
You are right.
I'm trying to,
You are right.
if you want that place to look a lot nicer than it is, because a lot of people have tried and they've not put a lot of investment into it. I'm not saying you have to put $1 million into it, but a nice paved parking lot, some fresh pavement markings,
Yes.
something to make that look inviting will bring people onto your lot. If you got a parking lot that looks like you're afraid to drive in because you're going to get a blown tire driving into it, no one's
Yeah.
coming in. And
Yes.
I want you to do well. So
Appreciate
I just want to make those comments that I hope, like I said, try to do a little bit to make it look a little bit nicer, and I wish you the best.
I appreciate that. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the Class 2 auto license for Speedway Motors located at 2195 Main Street.
I have a motion by Mr. Mackey, second by Mr. Ryder. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 We have to do roll call, she's not. Okay, Ms.
Sorry, guys. Aye.
Mr. Kratman,
All right.
Mr. Mackey,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Best of luck to you and welcome
Thank
to
you,
town.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
And before I leave, my uncle and law partner wanted me to make sure they said hello to you, Kevin Murphy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, Archstone Auto Body, 91 Washington Street, new Class 1 license. Anybody here for that? If you can come up and introduce yourself for the record. Name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Herman Shahan. 82 Pinto Drive, Tewksbury, Mass. Home residence, and Archstone Auto Body, 91 Washington Street in Tewksbury, Mass.
Dennis Sheehan, I'm the owner of the property.
Okay. Has everybody got a chance to read the application?
Yep.
Any questions?
I just got a comment. I've been to this business. Herman has got the reputation of wonderful service in this community for many, many years. Mr. Sheehan owns the places down there and does the things. Both of you have great reputations, and I appreciate you expanding your business because I think it'll help the community. We need more quality service, and I know that you provide that. So thank you for staying in Tewksbury, and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Any other members? No. This is a public hearing. Would anybody like to speak? Seeing none. Now, what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to approve the new Class 1 license for Archstone Auto Body.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Kratman and seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor? Okay, roll call vote again. Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. Good luck to you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay, next on the agenda is special permit MCP Howland Burt LLC, American Outside Advertising, 3 Executive Place electronic billboard. If you can introduce yourselves for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, David Plunkett, representing the applicant, the owner of the property, MCP Howard Burt LLC, and I have with me at the table Stephen Ross from American Outside Advertising LLC, who will be will construct the proposed billboard.
Okay, first of all, I want to apologize for not having you at the last meeting. We didn't have
Sure.
enough people for that. So, we'll give the floor to you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here before the board under section, 6.3 of the bylaws, which is a provision that the town voted upon to allow a billboard to be erected along the interstate highway. This is a location that will be a great fit for the proposed billboard. We have already gone before the ZBA and obtained all variances that would be required to allow this in the location as requested. We got notice on Friday that the appeal period has gone by, and the variance is ready to be recorded. Mr. Chairman, this is a situation where the town has voted upon a bylaw to take advantage of a potential benefit to the town. This is something that comes along that the town sees potential possibilities for the advancement of the town. The example being when the town passed the CPA surcharge. We took advantage of the fact that the state was taking money from anyone who recorded a document at the Registry of Deeds and giving it to communities that adopted the CPA. And since then, look at this town hall, a significant amount of money that went into this revision of the town hall came from the CPA. Ball fields, improvements throughout town, things of that sort. This is an example of another potential benefit to the town that we are asking the town to allow to be taken advantage of. This will create an income to the town, the potential income of $1.75 million to $2.5 million over the potential term of the agreement. It's a significant potential for the town. In addition to the money, it's also going to be a great benefit to the town for advertising the town. It will be for community events. It will be great for marketing the town so that there's now, And I know you've been involved with with trying to get business into town. So one of the major components is that people have to know the town. People have to realize that we're here. And this would be a great opportunity for the town to advertise itself, community notes and things of that sort. The fit, I think, is very good. We've submitted our application. We think that we have addressed all the issues that is, pertinent to the request that we've submitted to the board, and we would ask that the board support our application before you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Board members, we'll start with Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar to the last board, electronic billboard that came in front of the board, I was a supporter of. I think, this is an opportunity for the town to bring in revenue. And, as I've said before, if Tewksbury doesn't do it, the next town up the highway is going to do it and get the revenue. I support this. I think the location is a good location for it, and I'm looking forward to be able to use these funds for the town in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as I said last time you guys were in here, I am not against billboards. I think this is an infinitely better location. So my only question I have is, I was unable to quickly pull the previous proposed agreement, because I know you had mentioned it's, I believe, $1 million for the first $1 million over the first 20 years, and then potential of an extra 1.5 over the second 20 years. So that would be 2.5 over 40 years. Do we know what the previous, I feel like the first 20 years was a higher number on the previous applications.
It's the exact same agreement that we talked about before. The last time we were here, the lease we had with the property owner was a 20-year lease, so we could only guarantee that amount of money. This particular lease is 30 years, so that's the 1.75 million, and we have an option for a 10-year additional term, which could pull it up to that additional higher number. So this is a better benefit to the town.
Okay, so the agreement that I have received was 20 and 20. So that would be, looks like 1 million over the first, $25,000 per sign per year over the first 20 years, and then 37,500 per sign per year for the second 20.
Correct.
30 or 40?
So we have in place a 30-year agreement with the property owner now, and there's a 10-year optional extension for both parties to agree on. So it could go as high as 40 years, but the town, if you approve it, will be guaranteed revenue for 30 years at the numbers you just spoke of.
Perfect. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Kratman.
Well, I've always been in favor of these billboards. Not only does it bring revenue to the community, that literally it's advertisement. We have a lot of local businesses in our community that needs advertising. Having signs out there, bringing more places to, if we have land that's vacant and we're talking about developing it, and we've been talking about this for many, many years, I'd love to see our economic development working with, Alex and a number of other things. The town has an ability to have some free advertising on there. And so I want to take advantage of that. And so if we can put some advertising out there talking about how we can, some lots and availability of what's out there. I know the Snow and Ice is always looking for plow things. It'd be nice to have a nice big sign up there that we're looking for something. God forbid something happens in this community and we have an Amber Alert or something like that. We have that right up in our community. If somebody's missing or something's on, the police department can use that free advertisement. And, as the chamber member, I know we have a lot of businesses that are looking to come up here. And, advertising and telling that, Tewksbury is welcoming business community, and having that is, it's a great thing that we have, and it costs us nothing. And we also have the benefit of bringing in revenue that, we just went over water and sewer rates. Anything that we can bring in, that we can take. Like, we're putting money into sidewalks each year. If this offsets that, Maybe we take some of that money, and we put it toward the water and sewer, or whatever it is. There's all kinds of options of what we can do, but if we can bring revenue from another source, I'm taking it. And this is something that's a great thing. I appreciate you coming forward with it. I wish you the best of luck. What you do with your business, honestly, it's great. I hope you have a lot of businesses that take advantage of it, but as a selfish reason for the town, I'm looking forward to the revenue that it's going to do for this town. And anytime we can get free revenue, I'm taking it. And I appreciate you coming forward. I hope you can find another location.
I'll keep looking.
Okay, so.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming back. This location, I concur with my colleagues, it's, with Mr. Mackey, is tremendously better. So I really appreciate that. You did a great job on the packet with the information, so thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. I had a couple of quick questions for you. On your abutter notification, what was the radius you used to determine your abutter list?
I believe it's 300 feet.
Correct.
Okay. So is there anybody in the room? Are there any abutters that came to the meeting tonight? I can't see the room.
I don't know that there are butters. There are a number of town residents here to support this proposal.
Okay. So you used a 300-foot, that's the standard abutter list, but you didn't notify the people that might be impacted by the 1,000-foot, because you're inside that 1,000-foot radius, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Did you reach out to any of those homeowners that might be impacted?
We did not. We had a light study done, and based on the study, there would be no impact from the lights, so we did not reach out.
Okay. Did you do, so when you say there's a light study, that means that they won't see the billboards from their properties, or they won't have a fluorescence in their property from the light?
I think the term that it's a international electronic firm, and I think the term they used was the light would be a negligible effect to anybody in the area.
Sure. Okay. I'm reminded, Mr. Plunkett, of the south of the fire station cell tower that went up, I think, when you were on the planning board. And there had not been a balloon test or anything like that to assess what that would look like, which is something that happened later with future cell towers. Was any sort of balloon test done in this case to see kind of, would residents in that area be able to see the billboard from their properties?
We had a drone that went up to the top height of the billboard, and there were no houses visible from that height.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't see that in the packet, so that's great information. I appreciate that. So you're outside 500 feet, but you're inside the 1,000. What does that put you at? Like 800, 900?
It's about 800, yes, 800 plus feet to the nearest developed residential lot.
Which is on the other side of the highway, if I remember.
That's correct. And it's
You're looking at the packet.
Yes, and it's buffered by about, I think, 300 or 400 feet of thick forest.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm glad you mentioned that. You do need to take some trees down on that side of the highway so you have visibility. I didn't see a number associated with how many trees you thought you would need to take down. Were you planning to just thin it, or just take a particular all the way to the highway?
So the trees are on state property. We have to apply to the state, and it would just be trimming the tops of it.
Okay, so that's great. That's great news. All right, well, thank you very much. I do appreciate you coming back with this revised application in this much preferred location. I think it will be fantastic for the town. And I don't know that I buy the argument that $50,000 per year based on the size of our annual budget is particular. And I don't know that it's particularly efficacious. It's not a game changer in terms of what our finances are realistically. But I do think it is a benefit to the town to have these funds. I do appreciate the additional 20 years added in with the increase in the lease annually. And so I look forward to seeing your project go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no questions. Everybody asked the questions that I was going to ask, so I'm going to open up to the public. Anybody here from the public wish to speak, please come up to the microphone.
Yes, sir.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Is it on? Is it on? Can you hear me now? Is it on?
Yes, it's on.
We can hear you, Jerry.
Okay. Hi, Jane. Ms. Wellman. So,
Name
first
and
of
address
all,
for the record.
for the record, my name is Jerome Sellison, Selisen, 80 Redgate Road in Tewksbury. First of all, before we get started, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys talking about the enterprise funds. I was having flashbacks. Anyway, nobody would get that, but I was on the board way back when we first started the enterprise funds. But anyway, be that as it may, I think this is a really good opportunity for the town. I think from a financial standpoint, it's a good start. I think the location, based upon what we had seen before versus what they're showing now, is a marked improvement. And the other thing is, it's my understanding anyway, that I'm a member of the Tewksbury Lions Club, and that a lot of nonprofits will be given opportunities to advertise on the sign. Is that correct?
Yes is a short answer. The longer answer is that we will dedicate time, and whatever the town approves to put on a
Yeah.
billboard, we will put up.
Okay. So I think this is a win-win for the town, and I would hope the Board of Selectmen would approve them. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Come right up, introduce yourself, name and address for the record, please.
I have to get my notes here because I'm kind of nervous. Okay, my name is Angelica Porfido, and I live in 19 Arizona Road in Tewksbury. I've been here for about 35 years in the town of Tewksbury, and I came here to support this billboard. Fully support it. I think it would be great for the town to receive the revenue. Also, the money will go towards the sidewalk and repaired sidewalks, water bills. I mean, because the water is crazy in the town of Tewksbury, the rate, so I think it would help the town on that. That's it.
Thank you for your comments.
Yep.
Anybody else like to speak? Seeing none. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I have a motion made by Mr. Crackman, second by Mr. Wright. All those in favor, well,
Aye.
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 and chair votes aye as well. That's 5-0. Okay, now on the project itself. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the special permit for MSB Holland Bird LLC, American Outdoor Advertising.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Crackman.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Ryder. A roll call vote. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Crackman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well.
Thank you very
Good luck,
much.
and thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I need to drop off the meeting at this time.
Okay, it is now
Thank you very
7:25 or so. Ms. Wellman is departing the meeting.
Thank you.
Now, what do we get now? Okay, let's give them 2 minutes. Anybody need a break?
Going to take 2 seconds?
We're going to take a 2-minute recess.
he was out the whole, he told me he was going to go. But that's what scared me, I was afraid of him to go over.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is residents. Is there any residents here that would like to speak? Microphone. Okay, back. We're at residents. Would any residents like to speak? Seeing none, rushing to the podium. We're going to go to new business. And first on the new business, set a date for the annual and special town meeting. Mr. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm just requesting that the board set up the annual and special town meeting. The dates and locations are as follows. It's per the town's general bylaw 2.04010. Annual town meeting is scheduled to begin on Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. at the Tewksbury Memorial High School. And the special town meeting would be held on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Tewksbury Memorial High School.
Any question, board members? Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, one question. That's Cinco de Mayo is not a national holiday, is it? I know we've had some challenges with holidays in the past, so I will ask, there's nothing on the 7th, right? I know Mother's Day is the 11th. There's no holidays on the 7th, correct?
Yeah, that's not Mother's Day, right?
No, Mother's Day is the 11th this year, but
It's on a Sunday.
Yeah.
This is a Wednesday. Okay, any other questions? What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the dates for the annual and special town meeting.
second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote. Next up,
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, was that annual and special?
annual and
Okay.
special. yeah.
Annual and special, yes.
Open and closing of the annual and special town meeting warrants.
Sorry.
Mr. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I need a motion from the board to just to open the warrants, right? And they'll be open till, yeah, there it is. The opening starting Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, and close on Friday, February 14th, 2025, at 12:30 p.m.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Mr. Ryder. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote.
And just, Mr. Chairman, through the miracle of Google, there are some holidays on May 7th, National Concert Day, National Cosmopolitan Day, National Golf Day,
Oh,
and National Roasted Leg of Lamb Day.
All right. I don't think any of those are impacting special town meeting.
Next up is proposed zoning bylaw amendment intended to promote economic development. I think Ms. Loud is here for that. If you can introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Alexandra Lauder, Community and Economic Development Planner for the town of Tewksbury. Bear with me as I plug in here.
That's gonna work, it's probably not, right?
All right.
Oh, you got the right.
Yeah, I have the right cable. Just might have to turn it. I want to thank you folks for having me here this evening. So the purpose of my attendance here is to present to you a handful of proposed zoning amendments that through my work with the planning board and you doing some economic development initiatives in town that I think could be beneficial to make the town more attractive to potential businesses that are looking to locate here and to help out the residents. Economic development is also, folks' home and their investments that they make here in town. So forgive me for a moment. I'm going to pull up a presentation. You should all have the proposed amendments themselves on a memo that I submitted to the town manager the week before last. And The benefit of the presentation here will just be to make it a little more illustrative and not as text-heavy. All right. I already alluded to it a little bit, but what are the driving forces for these proposed changes? Discussions with property owners and selling or leasing buildings and land in town. So when property owners are listing their properties or ones that have already been listed and they start getting new inquiries, hearing about the types of uses that the people that are reaching out to them are looking for. And likewise, when sellers agents or buyers agents reach out to me and we kind of walk through the use table, some of the feedback that I'm getting is what drove some of these proposals. Interactions with potential businesses who want to locate or expand here, meetings with real estate brokers for both both property owners and prospective buyers, industry trends, market trends, and feedback from members of the community. Industry trends can be something as simple as, office space isn't being occupied at the same rates that we used to see. Market trends are what are the new businesses and types that businesses are moving towards. So the first item on the proposed zoning bylaw amendments would, that's the other monitor, never mind. Excuse me, would be an exemption for electronic message signs, specifically for menu boards. So currently, the zoning bylaw requires all electronic message board signs to obtain a special permit from the planning board. Now, when we think of the electronic message board signs, we think of the one in front of perhaps Wamisit Lanes, the one in front of Smitty's Liquors, the ones that are kind of advertising something for the business, right? The current broad definition for electronic message board signs applies to all digital boards, and that includes restaurant menus located within drive-through lanes. And of course, this electronic message board sign bylaw was written far before the advent of digital menu boards. And so we kind of had a little bit of a learning experience this past year with the planning board because they received 7 applications for electronic message board special permits in 2024, and 4 of them were just conversions from static menu boards to digital menu boards, and it was actually 4 Dunkin' Donuts locations, so they had to keep coming back to us, the same owners, the same everything, and they were effectively making the same special permit every time. This potential exemption, the language again is in front of you folks, would create an opportunity to not have to go through additional steps for existing and potential food establishments who are updating their operations or their branding. Next item would be to introduce new uses into the Industrial 1, Industrial 2, and Office Research Districts. So to give a little bit of map context within the town, Industrial 1, Industrial 2, those primary corridors are portions of Shawshene Street, East Street, and then pockets of other industrial areas include Commerce Way, Washington Street, which you folks had an application for earlier today, and different areas like that. The Office Research District is primarily off of 133, that International and North Street intersection where we see Raytheon, Leidos, and other businesses like that. Currently, there are several properties for sale and for lease in the Industrial and Office Research Districts. Some of the niche markets that I am hearing from buyers, sellers, agents, and what have you, have been for data storage, cold storage warehouses, and other and others are expanding and businesses are looking for towns to build these facilities, particularly cold storage. We did have a business come in for a special permit for 159 Wareham Street to the planning board in November under the broad definition of warehouse. And now we were fortunate that these folks were really great to work with and they weren't scared off by the special permit process. However, when a broker or someone who isn't familiar with the community or hasn't made contact yet is just looking at the use table, if they see that special permit provision, sometimes they won't even call. So being able to pull out these types of specialty warehouses that aren't necessarily a market basket distribution level warehouse as frankly, when they presented it to us, they're going to have about 7 employees. It's going to be mostly cold storage for pharmaceutical and medical materials, and it's not going to be that high generating traffic use that we think of when we think of warehouses. So just kind of playing through that and breaking out some of those uses that are not as obtrusive, but making it more attractive and telling businesses like, hey, we're willing to see these types of uses. As I mentioned, the current zoning use table and definitions do not include some of the most marketable uses, which create uncertainty and potential buyers and leasing agents. All of the uses that I put in front of you folks, which would be battery energy storage systems, which that's the graphic on the presentation right now, the cold storage warehouse, data center, and a banquet or function hall use, which we don't have in the bylaw right now outside of being incorporated into a hotel. Any of those uses, whether by right or by special permit, would have the oversight of site plan review. So having something be by right versus special permit is a 3 out of 5 vote versus a 4 out of 5 vote, and sometimes that one vote makes all the difference for somebody who's looking to pursue that kind of approval. Another item which actually came up at our last planning board meeting was to look at modifying the real estate sign requirements. So currently in our bylaw, we allow for temporary commercial real estate signs to be approximately 30 square feet, and they are allowed to be up for at least 5 days after the lease or the sale has been made. And at this time, that, in the opinion of planning board members and some other members of the community, that's a really large sign. That's almost as big as we allow for permanent advertising. And just trying to get arms around how long these signs are up and adding a little bit more monitoring to make sure that the signs that are up are really for spaces that are actually available, and it's not just advertising for the management company who probably has properties elsewhere, you know, creating the illusion or at least the expectation that there's space available in their building in Tewksbury when it actually isn't. So the modifications that are included for that would be to reduce the size down to 16 square feet and would allow for someone other than the building commissioner, who is the zoning enforcement officer and the sign officer, to be able to interact with those business owners and property owners to kind of work with them and hopefully get some of those extraneous signs down. Another item here, which we're kind of shifting out of uses into modifying the town center district map. So just for a review for folks, there are 4 business district types along Main Street. The Town Center District, which stretches from approximately 935 Main Street over to the library. The Mixed Use Business District, which has a handful of pockets around the 800 block of Main Street, up again around the 1700 block of Main Street. South Village Business District, which is Shawshene Street over to the Wilmington line on Main, and then the General Business District, which has the Lowell line to approximately the 600 block of Main Street, and then up on Andover Street as well. 3 of these districts include properties that front Main Street directly, and the parcels immediately behind them where those that front Main Street are smaller, just to create that cohesion along Main Street. The Town Center District alone encroaches beyond that general rule of thumb down a portion of Pleasant Street. The proposed change would pull back the Town Center District to be more in alignment and kind of take away that arm that goes down Pleasant Street and revert those back to R40, where I think every single property that's already there is residential, single family. This sets market expectations for those areas that are distinctly commercial from those that are characteristically residential. I think I had mentioned in my memo to you folks in the planning board that this map was a carryover from an old overlay district from the late 2000s, that the intention was to create kind of a different type of neighborhood in that area, and a lot of that didn't really come to fruition, and instead it actually places business district standards on residential homes and makes it a little more difficult for them when they're just trying to, you know, build an addition to their home and expand their existing residential use. This one, definitely economic development related. You got to stay with me for a second. So a lot more folks are working from home, spending a lot more time in their homes. We've seen that since COVID. And what has also happened is an increase in swimming pool permit applications. And of course, when pools are going in, safety is the top of mind, especially when it comes to managing access, particularly for children and for, you know, some nosier dogs. Currently, the building code does not require, does not capture all types of swimming pool enclosure types when it comes to safety requirements. And this can be remedied through zoning, and other communities such as North Reading have done this. And really, pools can be a source of liability for homeowners, and, where we see that insurance companies are starting to fly drones over people's houses and tell them to cut down trees, and, oh, do you really want to keep that pool? This could help provide an additional level of safety and predictability for folks looking to install those pools, because currently the main issue is that when a person wants to install a pool with a retractable pool cover, fencing and other safety measures are not required, and they can be managed remotely, which kind of creates a bit of a safety hazard. So all other pool types require fencing and locking gates and all those other kind of mechanisms. So this is just something that until the building code catches up, we can introduce this to our zoning to provide a little bit more safety and predictability for the residents. And last but not least, we are expecting the new flood insurance rate maps and flood insurance study maps to become effective in the late spring or early summer of 2025. We are waiting on a final letter of determination from the state, and they expect that those maps need to be instated as it takes effect. So if they are going to be coming online in April, that really times us well for May, but we are still waiting on that final determination letter from them. So you will also see an update to the map to the flood layers, but we just don't have those exactly yet. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Kratman, you have any questions?
I do. I mean, I really want to digest some of these things. I mean, there's a lot to go over, especially the town center portion of it. I want to really get into that to see how that affects something in the community. I understand Pleasant Street, that makes sense. It's residential, but every time we seem to make a little change, there's something that we didn't think about, if there's something that's going through. So I really want to go through that. The swimming pool thing I'm interested in. Have we, I believe in public safety. I agree that, we want to avert tragedies and all things, but do we have any numbers of anything that, like, if we had any incidents, like, did we get any numbers from police departments with problems or issues or anything like that? It comes out to government. I can see the residents' point. So we're putting, like, we keep saying we got unfunded mandates, and here we are. If there's not an issue and we're making residents go purchase something of what we're doing, and if there's not an issue, I just want to find out if there is.
Sure.
Safety is, I understand, but I'd like to see some numbers to go along with that. If there's anything, have we had any instances of problems in the community? I understand there's more pools coming in, but like I said, I'd like to see something behind it to say why it's warranted, that's all.
Sure. Yeah, we haven't had any reported incidents, and to my knowledge, there have been few applications that had the retractable tops, the retractable covers with them,
Yep.
But it was something that there have been, incidents in other communities, so I can certainly look into that.
Yeah, like I said, I love safety, but I also don't want to put an unnecessary burden on, if somebody's trying to put in a pool, the water rates themselves will be enough to stop somebody putting in a pool. But having something like this would be, like I said, I just want to make sure that we're not putting something on the residents that's not required, if not need be. So I'd like to look at it a little bit better. I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I just want to go over the numbers, that's all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Great presentation. I also have quite a bit to chew on. One question I did have that came right off the top of my mind is, do we have an idea of what changes have been made to the flood map? Is it getting better, or is it?
No.
Wonderful. Okay.
It's not expanding wildly, but there are updates to the boundaries.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Tewksbury being predominantly a swamp, I'm sure that's going to affect a large number of our residents, so wonderful. Thank you. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. Thank you for putting this together. A couple things on the pool. It's a little interesting, 7.3, any filtering pumping devices, within a 4-foot fence. If you look at a filter, it only has a 3-foot hose. So, and then the electrical code is required to have it within so many feet of a pool. So that contradicts itself on the electrical code. So has the building commissioner, what's his thought on this?
This was something that he pointed to as an example of a successful bylaw implementing
Okay. I just want to make sure that I know, having a pool when my kids were little, the filter can only be 3 feet away
Yeah.
because of the hoses. And you can't go any farther. So that might impact on what you're able to do of one of those small intake pools.
Sure.
The hoses only come so far, in length.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, where do you put it at that point?
Sure.
So I want to do a little bit more research on that, as well as the town center overlay district on how that's going to impact.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's going to clean it up a little bit. Looks like there was, especially that Pleasant Street
Yeah.
branch, I don't know why that was put in there. I always thought it should stop at Town Hall, but it's something I do want to take a look at, how that's going to impact. But
Sure.
thank you again for putting this all together. And I do agree with, the battery storage systems. I think that's going to be a benefit for the potential in the future development.
Yep.
So,
Those are definitely coming down the pipeline. We have a lot of, especially where we have a lot of national grid infrastructure, we do get companies reaching out a lot, and based on discussions with our building commissioner, other building commissioners, it sounds like that particular use is something that could become a part of Section 3, so we may as well get ahead of it, zone it where we'd like to see it in the district, the office research and the industrial districts where it's further away from residential uses, and luckily a lot of the national grid stuff is located near there too.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you very much. All set, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ryder. I can concur with my colleagues. It's a lot to digest, but I do have a question on the pool.
Please.
Are people with pools right now going to be grandfathered in?
Yes.
So we're not putting the burden on
It would be new permit applications for new pools.
permit applications
Yes.
only. That's what I wanted to clarify. Other than that, thank you for the presentation.
Of course.
And I'm sure we'll see you again in regards to this.
Yep, so
I was going to ask,
please.
Mr. Chair, what is I guess, when would you need this to come
Right.
back to the board?
Right, so this is the beginning of the roadshow. So I'll be speaking with the planning board about this on Monday at our meeting scheduled for Monday, January 13th. Ideally, we'd like to have any questions, comments, or concerns wrapped up before the warrant closes on the 14th. If you'd like to see me back here on the 28th with any questions, you're welcome to send them to me via email through the town manager, or I can come in and we can talk about them and chop them up.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to know.
Mr. Chairman, can I request something?
Please.
So you're going to be meeting with the planning board.
Yep.
We're going to have our questions. They're going to have theirs.
Yes.
Not to duplicate questions. I'd love to see, all the questions, if we can get, if they've asked certain questions, if there's something that's put together, can you share it with
Sure.
both boards?
Yeah,
So this
that'd be
way
great.
we're not asking the same question over.
100%, yep.
Yeah.
For a matter of convenience, it's much harder to coordinate 10 people's schedules than, so I figured 2 separate trips, but I can put everything together, and I'll probably visit you folks again on the 28th and try to get anything wrapped up, any outstanding questions, so that when it goes to the warrant, it's hopefully mostly what it will look like at town meeting.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, thank you for
Thank you very much.
your presentation. Okay, we're on to town manager, Mr. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the biggest thing on the report this week is just an update on the Cohasset School RFP. The town has engaged LDS Consulting Group to review the 2 proposals. Lynn Sweet is the consultant, and she has significant experience in the area of affordable housing. So myself and Steve Sadwick had a conversation with her earlier this week, and she will be able to get us a report prior to the next meeting, and she'll be able to review both proposals and give us some feedback on, what we should consider. And it might be that we might want to go into executive session on the time, at the time that we discuss this. She will come to that meeting, because if there is a negotiation that needs to take place, then we need to have the ability to do that in executive session. So that's the update on that, so that's good news. And then one of the, I think it was Select Board Member Ryder had asked about North Street, so we do have Park Corporation looking at that. We're also looking to see if we can get MassDOT to comment on that, because they actually brought that intersection into that whole discussion. So we'll get back to you on that one.
Great.
I did have a conversation with Paul Cohen from Chelmsford. We're looking into the possibility of Sailor and Waits, combined Sailor Weights and Measures between the two communities. As you know, that whole thing kind of fell apart with NIMCOG. Apparently nobody wants to do that job, so we're trying to figure out how to get that back on track. The fire department disposed of some surplus vehicles, and I attached a Friends of the Library report to your to the report as well. And then I just wanted to call out Officer Dennis Kelleher, who had done a great job on this last week, I believe. He was called out to, I believe it was a fire on Mohawk Drive, and was able to get somebody out of the house and get the people out of the house. Nobody was hurt. And we've had a couple of good saves in the last few weeks in public safety, so they're definitely earning their keep in the red and blue buildings in town. So kudos to both departments for what they're doing and the safety they provide to the community. So just a shout out to Officer Dennis Kelleher for his bravery in the line of duty, and we're glad he's on our team. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kern, in the next meeting, can you update us on the North Street School and negotiations with the Boston Hockey?
Yes.
Stand with it?
Okay.
All right. We're on to town council. Mr. Kern.
Okay. We have one bill in the amount of $3,952.50 from Town Council, Feely and Brown, and it's for services rendered from November 16th through November 30th, various items, and most to do with personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve the town council thing for November 16th through November 30th.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Kratman, second by Mr. Wright. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote.
And then I have another one from December 1st through December 15th, in the amount of $3,102.50 from Feely and Brown, again, for various sundry issues in the town.
Make a motion to approve the town council invoice from December 1st through December 15th in the amount of $3,102.50.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Kratman, second by Mr. Wright. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote. That's unanimous. Okay, that's the end of that. Minutes, Mr. Ryder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Make a motion to approve the minutes for November 12th, 2024.
I have a motion made by Mr. Ryder. I have a second by Mr. Mackey. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the
Wait,
minutes.
I didn't hear, Mr. Kratman, you
Oh,
say
sorry.
aye on that last one? And the chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote.
Sorry about
Okay.
that, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 26, 2024.
I have a motion made by Mr. Ryder.
I'll second that.
And I have a second by Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye as well. That's 4-0 vote. That's another unanimous vote. Okay, we're on to board member reports. We'll start off with Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have an economic development meeting tomorrow night, and just to follow up on the school reuse committee, prior to the holiday, we visited the final schools, and we'll be meeting next week to continue to move that forward. A lot of information has been put forward to the board, and now we're just downloading and seeing the best direction to move forward with that.
Okay, Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ryder just touched on both economic development and the school long-range planning committee. The only other piece I have is I'm sure residents have started to notice that we've begun to address the purple lights all over town. Those will continue to be addressed, but we're making headway. So that is a step in the right direction after a long time of chasing down the ghost. So we got it solved. Thank you.
Before I turn it over to Mr. Kratman, I just want to inform Molly is that Molly Ginsburg resigned from your thing, and at the next meeting, we will have an applicant that the school committee chooses it, we don't, and for approval, just an FYI. Okay, Mr. Kratman.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any board member reports, but I would like to make an announcement. I apologize for being late tonight. I think most of you know I've been dealing with some medical issues that I've been dealing with, and I've talked with people in my family, my doctors and things like that, and I got to prioritize my health. I'm going through many treatments and things that I'm dealing with, and I gave some thought to, I'm up for re-election this year, and I got to take some time for myself. I love this town. I love everything that I do for this town, but I can't, I got to start focusing on me not getting any younger. And with that, I don't intend to run for re-election this year. I need to take a break. Not saying I won't be back, but I really need to focus on my health, my treatments, my things that I need to focus on. And I, like I said, I'll still be active in this community. I'll still be doing things much in the same way when I was off the board. I never went away. I don't plan on being away. I love this town. I plan on being active in this community. But I do need to prioritize getting my health back and focusing on that. So I just wanted to make that announcement. So anyone who is interested in stepping up and serving this community, I appreciate it if they would. This is a great job. I love every minute of it. I wish I could continue. Like I said, I gotta take some time for myself.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Kratman, and we all wish you well. And you do, the number one item is your health, because if you don't have your health, you have nothing. Okay, I only have one thing, and that is they did the menorah lighting just after Christmas, and I want to thank all the people that came out and participated in the event. It wasn't overly crowded, but there was a few people there. So again, thank you. So that's all I have. So with that being said, who wants to do the motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion adjourned by Mr. Mackey, second by Mr. Ryder. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Our next meeting is on January 28th, and will be started at 7 o'clock. Good night, Tewksbury.